catch up on any previous episodes, visit us at coderconvos.com, or if you want to contact us at coderconversations@gmail.com. I'm your host, Kevin.
And I'm Brian Russick, professional drummer, drum teacher based out of the Suffolk County, Long Island, New York area. If you'd like to book a lesson with me sometime, I could be found at brianrussick.com.
And joining us today is advertising professional Kristofer Kaizer. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, man, thanks for coming on.
It was definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. So, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in the advertising space?
Yeah, so currently I'm an account director. If anyone is familiar with how tariffs and marketing, the whole marketing industry has kind of been affected by it, a lot of marketing initiatives have stopped. So I've been kind of doing smaller contract gigs between agencies, and right now I'm over at Leo working on a retail piece of business.
Oh, awesome. So, like for those who are not familiar with the roles in the advertising space, can you give us like a kind of an overview of what the different roles are and what they do and how you fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of different tiers. I work primarily in the account tier, which is client relations, client leadership, trying to sell the ideas in and making sure that whatever the creative team is working on, that it matches the brief and the original desires of whatever client we're working on. It's kind of weird because it's the only pillar that doesn't really have a tangible output. We're mainly
Right.
Managing relationships and kind of talking things through and making sure that the team is working together and in unison versus against each other. And the other pillars, we have like a strategic peer that will go into brief writing and making sure that all of the assets that we create internally are on brief and making sure that they're meeting client expectations. And then the creative team, usually split between art and copy. They come up with all the ads, whether it's a TV script or a print ad or some sort of digital social initiative. And then, of course, we have the production team as well, which they actually take the creative concept and they work with the directors, the PAs, the entire crew to bring whatever that concept is to life. So a lot of people are touching a lot of assets. Sometimes there's a project manager that helps with workflow. I could keep going, but then I'll start boring everyone with the complexity of it.
No, that's a pretty good rundown.
So, yeah, what is it about your job that you really enjoy? Like, what pushed you in this direction to go into this career field?
Yeah, I've ever since I was a little kid, always wanted to be a director. And I know we talked earlier about screenwriting in general, so we'll eventually segue over there. But when I went to college halfway through, I just kind of looked around and realized that I needed a better plan to actually be able to be stable after graduation. I went to film school and grew up in Indiana, lower middle class. So paid our way through college, have a bunch of loans, and film isn't the easiest thing to lock in, after college. And of course I had loans to pay. So I wanted to switch over to something a little bit more strategic and business oriented. And so I switched over to advertising and kind of worked my way up there. But film's always been the passion. What keeps me in advertising is the creativity and the ability to be able to collaborate with everyone and just to help clients figure out what business objectives they need to pull the trigger on in order to be successful in the marketplace. But it all comes down to the work. I just like being creative. I love storytelling. We all have a story. You just got to peel back the layers to kind of uncover it,
Absolutely. So, like, in what ways are you actually able to kind of utilize your film background and bring it into the advertising space? Like, how has that helped you in that space?
Yeah, it definitely helps with a production value. I mean, just knowing how to operate on a set, knowing how to edit and when's the right time to cut. And how to crop things, making sure that you're not cutting off limbs or, you're cropping images at like a weird angle that won't read right. So having that knowledge, it kind of makes it second nature and you don't have to try as hard with the creative part. I would say the other part too is just overall storytelling within decks. I feel like there's an art to putting a deck together and how that flows from opening to what we're reviewing to going through the concepts and explaining why they work and how they'll work and backing that up with evidence. It's harder to do without that storytelling background. Just kind of like an overall flow, I guess, if that makes sense.
I got you. So, like in your mind, obviously you have a limited amount of time to tell a story. So, given
Exactly.
that the time is so limited, what are some key points that you have to hit on in order to make sure you're conveying the point you want to in such a short space?
Yeah, I mean, brevity is definitely key. I feel like if you want to pass over a document with a bunch of words on it, but presentations, should be brief and should get the point across with as little words as possible.
Right.
I also think visual storytelling, it's, I don't know, remember where I read it from, but they talk about like the Egyptians and hieroglyphics being one of the first alphabets, and they're all pictures, and pictures are truly the universal language, right? You look at emojis and everyone knows what a smiley face is. And I just think that there needs to be a certain amount of visual storytelling that accompanies the bullets to fully get that picture across.
How do you kind of interact with the creative teams?
Yeah, a lot of brainstorming.
Okay.
I think it's important to have trust as well. Like I build trust with the team. I
Yeah.
think that with pillars and dynamics, sometimes the different departments don't want to work together. So it's bringing down that barrier first is really important.
So you really want to like build rapport?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I
Right.
did a lot of improv too. So it's a lot of yes and a lot of collaboration and just making sure people feel like they have the landscape to speak up.
Sure.
I think that's key. But more importantly, just like helping them brainstorm and inspire them too. I think that
That's awesome.
a lot of people or a lot of account folks, they'll pass briefs over and they'll give direction, but they're not necessarily just saying like, oh, I saw something cool on the way home, or hey, I was reading this article and thought this was really relevant to some of the stuff that we're working on. So just trying to keep the creative ideas flowing. That way people feel like they can add theirs as well.
Yeah, I know it can be pretty difficult to manage a bunch of creatives. So how do you keep like everybody on track and, making sure, like you mentioned, that everybody's heard and their ideas are, getting their due justice?
Yeah. So definitely want to caveat or clarify. It's definitely working alongside creative versus managing creative. I guess like from the hierarchy perspective, I would directly manage other account executives or other like business leadership professionals. But working with the creatives. Can you repeat the question?
So the question was like, with all of these creatives kind of working together, well, since you don't manage them, but how do you like help facilitate them being able to
The
work with
timing.
each other versus
Yep.
going off track?
Right.
Yep. Yep. A lot of timelines that adjust multiple times. I feel like
Yeah.
they're forever moving, and it's just like constantly trying to adjust and just trying to, make things work. I feel like a lot of the clients give impossible deadlines. And so it's also kind of playing peacekeeper and making sure that you're not, coming in with negative energy and being like a positive light. But yeah, a lot of timelines, a lot of landmarks, a lot
Yeah, it
of
sounds a
collective
lot.
internal reviews.
It
Yeah.
sounds a lot like the recruiting industry. I worked in recruiting for tech recruiting for about a year.
Yeah.
So like yeah, you mentioned like these really tight deadlines, and I know that could be really stressful, and you also mentioned keeping a positive attitude. So in the face of these like tight deadlines, how do you keep the positive attitude and keep things from boiling over?
Great question. I feel like a lot of it is you have to build a team dynamic, which is really important, where we're in it together versus separately or individually. But I think a lot of it too is just transparency. If the situation sucks, let's not fake it and say that it doesn't suck or that we're having a good time. You know, I think it's important to just be real, say, hey, you know, this is tough, not ideal, but you know what makes us stronger? We work together as a unit, and the work's going to be great. You know, I think that a lot of people who work in advertising, they're in the creative industry because they love creativity, and so we just all
Right.
feel privileged to be able to work in an industry where we get to do what we love versus sit in Excel all day, or
Right.
maybe have something that's a little more structured. So in the end, you know, yeah, the deadlines can be stressful and tight, but we're doing what we love, and I think that's just keeping that a top reminder, you know, during those times is key.
I imagine that helps a lot.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I know like just about anything significant, it requires teamwork. You can't do everything by yourself. So like what would you
Yeah.
say makes a good team member versus a bad one? Like what kind of traits should a team member have to really facilitate getting things done?
Yeah, over communication, I feel like is key. The hardest part is to tackle communication. I feel like people either want to micromanage or they don't want to be managed at all. And it's finding that
Yeah.
balance of, you know, being present enough to be known, but like also knowing when to back off and give people space so they can breathe and flex their creativity.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, I think it's all yes and, you know, back to improv. I think that it's easy to kill ideas, and even if an idea may not be the best idea that you've heard or the best idea that you've seen, you want to find what's great about it so you can highlight it and continue the inspiration to make sure that something is evolving from it versus it just dying and then having the team go back to the drawing board and being frustrated.
Yeah, like you mentioned, communication is very important. I find it's important in every field, and yeah, there can often be
Definitely.
impediments to good communication. So, like, what would you recommend? Say somebody joining your team, how can they be a good communicator? Like, what can they do to make sure that their points are being expressed effectively?
Yeah. Definitely. I know I said this earlier, but over communicate. I feel like over communication is important, at least when you first start, because you don't know what information is vital to the other person. I think it's, you know, really hard for us to relate to other people and put ourselves in other people's shoes sometimes. And so just by making sure that you're bringing the team along in every step of the process at first, so you can start to observe and take note, like, oh, this is something that they keep grappling onto, or, you know, kind of ways of working fall from that. And I feel like conversation naturally forms authentically as you get a better flow going. The other thing is say what you mean. I think that, you know, sometimes we're in a very busy world, and there's a lot of things happening. And sometimes we're a little quick to type something out and hit send. It's important to make sure that the words that you're saying are being resonated by the audience that's receiving. And a perfect example is I was working on an account, and we were making a piece that was humor based, and it had kind of
Yeah.
a talk show element to it, and the clients didn't think it
Okay.
was funny, and the creatives, you know, kind of reinforced, like, oh,
No.
it's like Jimmy Fallon, and the client said,
Right.
I hate Jimmy Fallon, I can't
Oh
stand him.
no.
So it's, you know,
Jeez.
just by saying funny, that doesn't necessarily cover off on what funny actually means. And I know I feel like I
It's
answered in
kind of
two different ways
subjective,
there,
right?
but
Kind of
yeah, exactly.
subjective comedy and what, you
Yeah.
know, or like genre wise, what someone prefers over something else.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, I know in like the creative space, like Brian just mentioned, there's a lot of subjectivity. So how do you know that you're picking something quote unquote good? I guess it requires a lot of listening to the client and getting feedback.
Yeah. Definitely listening and making sure that when you present back, you're repeating things that they directly told you. Because again, it reinforces that you're actually listening, you're paying attention, and, you know, you're making the effort to be a good partner and a good collaborator. Um, yeah. Yeah. Just going to go with listening.
Yeah. So I know like working with client, it could be kind of like a dance. Like you have to listen and take their feedback, but you can't let them dominate the project, or else they're gonna they could potentially sabotage things by having them be too involved. So like,
Yeah.
how are you able to give clients pushback and tell them, hey, like you're overstepping. We're professionals here. We know what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great question too. I feel like usually substantiation is key. So if you're going to go to battle, have a proof point and make sure that you're able to back up whatever you're trying to fight for. Um, I feel like a lot of clients, they want to be better partners and better collaborators once you're a better partner first. Um, and so I feel like if clients usually are overstepping, it's probably because you're not communicating with them to the expectation that they have, or there's some sort of disconnect there.
So
And
like
so,
they
yeah,
want you to show your cards first, it
yeah,
sounds like. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right. Um, and so I feel like that's definitely key. You really have to prove that you're willing to be a partner to them in order for them to partner with you. Meet in the
Okay,
middle.
so it's kind of like a reciprocal relationship. You have to constantly manage to make sure that it doesn't become one sided, and one party is left unsatisfied.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, we're all people at the end of the day, like we all want to be treated like humans, and we want to be friends with our clients. It doesn't mean we have to be best friends. But I want to enjoy the time that I spend with the people that I'm working with and making work with. So I feel like when you set that vibe or that kind of like playing ground, advertising in general is just more successful.
So let me ask this, in your opinion, what or who is the ideal client?
That's a great question. So someone who knows what they want. I feel like a lot of people
Number
don't
one.
necessarily, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, know
number
what you
one.
want. Um, Definitely being open to partnering. I think that some clients will be a little too directive and a little too overbearing, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Sometimes partners aren't present enough and they're afraid to take risks, so they'll push back, on the agency team and ask for our recommendation or our POV, so they don't have to tie their name to any sort of direction. So I think that, yeah, it's just that partnership is so key, man.
So yeah, we've covered the aspect of the overbearing client, but how about the client that doesn't give you enough information and you're asking for clarity and you're not necessarily receiving it? So how do you call a shot in aspects where they're not giving you clarity?
That's got to be tough.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. What I try to do is I try to work around their schedule. So we had a client who was doing, God, it was like four people's jobs and it was just him. I mean, when I say the marketing realm is understaffed ever since like 2022, 2023, no joke, it's been wild. But he just did not have the time to even send emails. And even if he did have the time, they were half baked and they didn't make sense.
Right.
And so it was, hey, whenever you're free, let's set 2 hours. You've got the floor. And we just, cross off all of these things and we just do it weekly. We keep the consistency and keep it standardized. But truly, just setting time aside where we have his full attention and just making it work.
So you being in the marketing space, are you primarily like producing visual marketing, like videos and print, or like what is the exact realm of your marketing?
Man, I've done it all. I've done it from packaging to print to TV commercials to like PR stunts to uh, POS, which is point of sale in the store, to digital banners to social campaigns and social assets. I primarily work in like the 360-degree aspect. So, it's we would have a brand and we would be the agency of record working on every single creative aspect of their brand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you pretty much are able to touch like every piece of the marketing campaign.
Yes. Yeah. Every single piece, like I said, from packaging
Yeah.
to, if you're doing like a Spotify partnership or some sort of TV commercial, and making sure that it's all integrated. A lot of the times when clients are investing in dollars to have their message out there, if their message doesn't look the same, sometimes it won't kind of spark that top of mind callback. So you want to make sure that there's consistency between all your different elements. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your dollars.
Yeah, it seems like you mentioned, consistency and cohesion are incredibly important. You don't want to have one aspect
Yeah.
be completely different because it could send two different messages. So, like, how do you keep everything in line when you're touching so many different components?
Timelines, uh,
Yeah.
project management. I feel like a good PM in this instance helps. But more importantly, it's, waking up every day and making sure that you're reviewing, what are the things that I absolutely have to get done today? What are the things that absolutely have to get done to set yourself up for tomorrow? And then making sure that you're carving some space in your day to think about the future. Because if you're too reactive, it becomes too chaotic and you burn out
Right.
fast. So definitely about that balance. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. What keeps you, specifically, what keeps you from burning out?
Man, I will say that my first 5 years of advertising, I was feeling it.
Okay.
And when I had my layoff, it gave me a lot of time to recharge. I had a 15-month in
Okay.
between, which is
Yeah.
wild. I've never thought I would have ever experienced like a year away from work.
And
But I
that's a
decided to
lot more
take
common in this kind of
wild.
post-COVID world that we're living in now.
I mean, I have so many friends and so many coworkers who, yeah, they've been looking for work if it's not a couple of months to almost a
Here.
year. Um, and a lot of jobs that are out there, they're not full time. There are a lot of contract. A lot of companies right now, they want to give work, but they don't want to have a full time employee contract because it does lead to layoffs. So you're seeing a lot more like non-committal contracts. That way they're able to staff, but there's no commitment. Um, but yeah, definitely taking the time in between the gigs have helped. But then also just like recharging. I got to watch my movies. Like I said, I'm a big film guy. So if I don't take my time to either consume or to like do my own writing to get my creative outlet out, I definitely would burn out.
Right. So, you mentioned film. What's your like top two movies that you'd want to watch again and again?
Yeah. So American Beauty is definitely number
Nice.
one. And then Kill Bill Volume 2 is number two.
Very nice.
Probably seen both of those like, oh my God, maybe 400 times. I love those movies. I used to just like play them in the background while I studied.
Yeah, my number one would probably
And
be Pulp Fiction.
oh yeah,
Great
yeah. I think we
movie.
talked about that a
Great
little.
movie.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's just wild to know that at the time Tarantino, he was so young,
I know.
in his career. And it's what made in '94, and it still
It's still
stands the test of
relevant.
time. I
Yeah.
feel like most films don't do that. Um, but yeah, definitely Tarantino is cream of the crop for me.
So, like, what about Quentin Tarantino and the way he directs things really makes him stand above some of the other directors out there? Like, what do you really like about his work, and how do you apply it to your own work?
Yeah, so he kind of taught me this idea of like genre bending. He has this love for spaghetti westerns that don't necessarily make sense with a lot of the scripts and the stories that he tells, but it works because he loves it and he has so much experience with it. He can somehow find a way to put the two together. I think it's really hard to do. I think like Lady Gaga is another good one that can marry genres. Yeah, it's very difficult.
So, like, as much as you could tell us, like, what are some of the more interesting projects you've worked on? Some of the more interesting commercials or film that you've put out for these different brands?
Yeah. So I got to work on McDonald's, which was a lot of fun. I mean, we've launched all day breakfast. I don't even know if that's still live or if it's still active.
Right.
But then also helped with the self-ordering kiosks, like those giant menu
Oh yeah.
boards,
Right.
which was supposed to be like a more futuristic take on it before it was expanded. And I feel like now it's a little bit to help with workflow and keeping foot traffic steady and whatnot. And then I worked on Kellogg's, worked on some other accounts that I necessarily can't talk about because there's age restrictions. But yeah, primarily I've been in the CPG QSR world.
So for those who don't know, can you explain that acronym?
Yeah. CPG is consumer packaged goods. So think like, gum, candy bars, cereal,
Right.
crackers. And then QSR is a quick service restaurant. So McDonald's, anything that you can probably get a meal 5 minutes after you put an order in.
So like Taco Bell, Wendy's.
Taco Bell. Yep. All of them. That's usually how they categorize. I feel like there's a lot of non-competes with ad agencies. So a lot of agencies can only have one client in each sector, right? So once you have one QSR, quick service restaurant, you can't have another.
Right.
Which, yeah, definitely complicates things in the long run.
It's kind of, it's to me, it sounds limiting.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But a lot of the ad agencies, they have umbrellas and they separate agencies out. That way they're able to have multiple of the same type of clients under the same umbrella, just not at the same agency.
I see.
So for most of these clients, were you more so on like the procurement side, like getting their business, or on the actual creative side of like creating the commercials or packaging,
Yep.
etc.?
The latter. So more like packaging, creating the commercials. Usually a client will already have some sort of like contractual agreement with the agency. And if it's written good, it outlines all the different deliverables and, kind of what the output is from the agency. And so what I do is I make sure that all of that output is done correctly. And like I said, according to strategy, and making sure it comes to life. I'm not the creative mastermind behind the visuals. Like I said, I help more with guiding strategy and selling it into the partners at the end. But either way, it's just fun to touch creative. I said, I don't feel like a lot of people get to do that. So I feel blessed.
Yeah. I mean, what is your favorite part of all of this? If you were to say specifically.
Yeah, I love bringing concepts to life on set. Like I said, I'm a big film guy. I just love being able to, manage or like oversee the script and see it go from conception through production, through editing to go live.
It's wild.
With film and TV, I mean, man, it takes a 1.5 to 2 years to make a movie.
Right.
We can't even get a Stranger Things on time. It's like every 5 years we're getting a new damn season. So it's rare that you get to be a part of the process and see it come to life in the case of 3 to 6 months.
I see.
Yeah, you get to touch a lot of things, a lot of different things. It doesn't become stale.
So, I mean, it seems like interesting that you get to explore film, but it's also, I guess, kind of limiting in subject matter because it has to be about maybe hamburgers or tacos or crackers or something. So.
Yeah, I mean, there are some cool campaigns that my favorite one, it's called Like a Girl. It's from Always, and it takes this insight of a lot of girls' confidence drop at the age of 13 or when they go through puberty. And a lot of people use the word like a girl as an insult, like, oh, you throw like a girl.
Right.
Or, oh, you run like a girl. And so it was this docu-style commercial that interviewed women and also girls and kind of asked them the same question. What does it mean to throw like a girl? And when I say you get chills when you watch it, you see all the older girls go in and they belittle it, oh, it means that, it's not as strong. But all of the younger girls are like, oh, it means to run as fast as you can. It means to throw the ball as hard as you can, because at that age, before puberty, right, you don't make that
Yeah.
connotation. And so not all advertising, I mean, right, like a lot of ads are made to sell and to move product and increase foot traffic. But some ads try to change culture and try to be more relevant than just, hey, buy my hamburger. Those are the fun ones to work on.
Right, because some of them,
Those
some
are
of 'em are
few and far
probably just
between.
like, okay, let's show the bun here. Let's make sure it looks really like glossy. Okay, let's see the meat patties. Okay, those look scrumptious. You're probably more in that direction on some of these clients, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've done both. So I think that there's some like higher level thinking that I've worked on, and then I think with food photography in general, I've worked on a lot of food photography, and it definitely has to be the product, right? You can't come through with fake things. Everything that you're shooting is actually the product, but it's important that when you cut lettuce, you got to shoot it within 20 minutes, otherwise it'll start wilting. The lights can't be too hot for the cheese because it might start bubbling if it's too hot. So a lot of detail when it comes to food photography.
Yeah, I know. A good food commercial really make you want to go out and get that hamburger or whatever. Now, so like, what are the elements behind making something really enticing on camera in such a short space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it might be more suited for someone on the creative team. I'm like, I wish I had my partner here to tap him in. I'm like, Paul, you handle this one. I personally, I feel like it's a lot of close-ups. I think that you have to be intimate with the product if you're doing it in like a super short amount of time. I always think back to, what is it, like the iPhone commercials where it's like a close-up and it's only showing like the edge, and it's, super short, cut together real fast before revealing the full product. That's usually in like a monotone background with a spotlight around it. Um, yeah, yeah, definitely close-ups.
Are there kind of like different genres of commercials? Like say for example, film has documentaries, horrors, thrillers, etc. Are there like different categories of commercials that y'all or templates?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff's organized by, I feel like, channel or deliverable. So it's like print, social, digital. Um, but yeah, we don't really categorize, I would say, in that sense. However, a lot of agencies, and it's very similar to like the Grammys and the Oscars, there are a lot of award ceremonies for advertising. The Cannes Festival out in France being one of them. And so they have specific categories that, maybe like PR stunt or like trailblazer or like tech
Right.
focused, but nothing like super specific that you would, I would say, tie back to like a genre of TV or film.
Okay.
Okay, so like, have you seen any outstanding commercials recently? And like, what was that commercial, and what were the elements that made it great? And how do you plan on incorporating that into your next campaign?
Yeah. So I have recently dove into a lot of character work. So, think like Jolly Green Giant. Um, I can't talk about the one that I worked on because it hasn't been launched yet, but very excited for that to go live. However, during that time, I did a lot of studying on, I can't remember if it was Pampers or Huggies. But they created these little characters, and it's like this little like poop emoji and this little like pee emoji, and their names are turd and urine.
Oh, wow.
But they had become these little emoji characters in their ads to help teach toddlers how to
Right.
potty train, which is just genius. Just how a brand can go and create these characters, these moments of culture, and to help teach kids how to use the
Right.
bathroom.
So yeah, like just like with any, I guess, character, you have to kind of stay within the I guess the universe within the lines of the character. So how do you make sure that that character is on brand, or that character is maintaining what the brand wants you to what they want to convey with that character.
Yeah. So usually whenever you create a brand character, you have a whole style guide that comes with it that talks about tonality, do's and don'ts, likes and dislikes. That way, whoever is working on the piece of work, because you got like multiple creatives, right? It's not like one person is making all this stuff. I mean, you may have a team of 10 to a team of 100.
It's not like just one guy down in the basement, just like
Exactly. You're just not, 24/7 cranking out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I get that.
So it's definitely a large team, and those style guides and those like tonality decks are really important to make sure that things stay consistent.
So like who is the guy on the like in the workflow that kind of makes a final decision? I guess like a producer, editor type that says, "Hey, this is good," or "Hey, you need to, tweak this. You need to get this character, back on point, etc." Like,
yeah. So it depends what POV I guess you have on it, but at the end of the day, it's my job to sell it into the client. So if the client doesn't buy it, it falls on me. So if I didn't catch it, before it went out, usually I'm the one to blame, or the account person.
Oh, interesting. Like how thoroughly do you need to like look over these commercials? Because I'm sure there's also there's this creative storytelling aspect, but you also have to be culturally sensitive to make sure that things are not slipping through that could offend somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things definitely have to go through legal. I feel like from a culture perspective, if you don't have a place to talk about it, just don't, don't force it. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are too try hard, and there's been a lot of bad commercials out there that have been a little tone deaf recently. And just don't be dumb. Don't try to like force yourself into the conversation. Everything's got to feel authentic.
Yeah, I know you have to kind of balance, a bit of edginess, something that catches attention, but like you mentioned, you don't want to become like a shock jock and, do cheap things that get you kind of in trouble later down the line.
Yeah, whenever I think of like, I shouldn't say cheap, but cheap and gaudy, I always think of like the used car sales commercials with like explosions and Santa hats and but the crazy thing is it works.
Yeah,
they do it because it works, so can't hate on it.
Or that's kind of like the sign guy. You see the guy outside flipping the sign that says Al's Cars or whatever, and people will say, hey, actually, that guy out there, he generates a lot of leads.
Yeah And at the end of the day, being noticed is better than being unnoticed.
Yeah.
So when you say detail and kind of like having that balance between edge and safe, that edge is important, because if you don't break out, you just kind of blend into the clutter.
Yeah, I think, ultimately advertising is like you're pretty much in the entertainment business, but you just have a compressed space to entertain and make the sales pitch.
Yep. Exactly. It's like the business of, or the art. I don't know the right wording for that, but it's definitely like a business aspect with entertainment, if that makes sense. It's definitely a fun industry to be a part of, to be honest with you. I don't know if you guys ever watched Mad Men, but it's not 100% like that.
Not as dark,
but there are elements that are kind of similar, and it's a fun creative industry,
So like just comparing the reality of the industry with a series like that, what would you say is real and what is exaggerated?
With Mad Men specifically?
Yeah, or typically what they portray the industry as in movies.
Yeah, I feel like we don't drink all day.
First off.
So that's definitely, right. Definitely don't drink all day or smoke all day. So I do think that there's a little bit more fun to the lifestyle, in the sense that, with creativity, maybe we'll go grab a drink after work. That's a little bit not as uptight that you may see at like a fancy, corporate happy hour. But I think the collaboration, just like the fact that during the workday, you kind of go up to your teammates or your coworkers and you're like, hey, I got this idea, or like, hey, I want to pick your brain. I mean, that type of collaboration is very real. And it really is more like a team versus individuals. And there are politics, right? There are people who are the Don Drapers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the collaboration definitely it hits.
So like let's just say you just started your own firm or something. Like how would you even manage to get in front of a big client, say like Kellogg or something, and how would you even begin a pitch that would actually procure business?
Yeah. So there's always the cold call. I've talked to a lot of producers and a lot of people in the industry, and just with the way that influencers and creators, I mean, podcasts, right? Like everyone is being empowered to be creative. Um, and so, damn, I lost my train of thought. Bring me back. Can
Yeah,
you
we
bring me
were
back?
pretty much talking about like, okay, let's just say you started your own firm and you wanted to procure clients, and how would you go about that?
Thank you. Yep. So you can definitely do the cold call, and you can definitely, just try to pitch on
Right.
your own. People are more open to that because of the creator culture. RFPs are another big thing. You'll see brands and businesses, they'll put out an RFP, which is a request for a proposal, saying that they're in the market for an ad agency or they're in the market for creative collaborators to help. And then, of course, you fill that out and you go through the whole pitch process. And then sometimes it's who a good friend or someone that you've worked with in the past, and they just kind of give you the hookup. I think that all are very viable options, and I don't think anyone is a silver bullet. It's just depends what works for the
Yeah, when I was
situation.
younger, I worked in insurance, and when you're in that kind of sales type of industry, you got to go to a lot of these networking events, very corporate type of
Yeah,
events, get dressed up. And I always felt like, that there's got to be more to this business than just like going and schmoozing people and, getting on a golf course with people. But there, you see deals being done by people who are shaking hands, having a drink. So it goes
yeah,
both ways, I guess.
yeah. And a lot of the times, the reason why, yeah, there's like the schmooze element to it, right? But conversations feel more organic over a casual setting. And so it's so much easier to talk things through when you're not feeling like uptight or feeling pressured. I feel like that's why a lot of people tend to do that stuff.
Yeah, I've heard pretty similar things about networking. Like you don't necessarily want to go in with like this intent to close X amount of deals. You kind of just want to, excuse me, get to know people and present yourself in a more casual fashion to, I guess, where they like you, they're open to speaking with you, and that's where business flows more naturally versus like you going and coming with a sales pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one wants to hear the rehearsed, regurgitated, like, oh, they, end of the day, people connect with people. And I think it's just important to make sure you're a
And
person.
people work with who they like ultimately, so a
Yeah.
lot of these like really big deals, the people like each other. I mean, I used to work with I had a business partner, this Korean woman who I used to know in LA, and I remember she had this one client it was a huge client. There was like maybe like 50 people in the company, but for group health insurance, that's a good amount. So that's a good paycheck. And she basically retained that business for 10 plus years just because she had a connection with I think the CFO. Isn't that
Yeah.
wild?
Yeah. Wild how that works. I mean, the same situation happened with me on how I am where I am today. I feel like with the different agencies that I've been at, I've made connections with coworkers that I've really enjoyed working with. And one of my coworkers from the past was like, "Hey, yo, check it out." Next thing I know, I got a job there.
Yeah.
It almost fell into my lap, and a lot of that isn't because I went out and networked. It's because I made a cool connection with someone that I enjoyed working with, and we just kind of like saw each other as like cool people, and we have each other's back. feel like a lot of people forget that that's really
Yeah.
important, you know? They get lost in the numbers and I want to climb the ladder or get promoted. Because I've worked with people who aren't so great too. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure it's harder for them to get recommendations and to land the
So
next
yeah, if we're
gig.
talking in that field, what does it take to get promoted in the ad industry? What are some of the steps that someone would have to take? What, steps that you would take to get promoted potentially?
Yep.
Well, what does that look like?
Yeah, it is really hard to get promoted within. Main reason being is because whenever you're working with a client, you're sold a scope, and that scope has a team, structured associated with it. So if you're on that team, there's not to say that there's going to be a position open above you that you can jump up into. The only way to get promoted would be to go to a new account, which a lot of agencies don't want to switch you to new accounts because you've got all the knowledge on the account that you're on, so they want to keep you where you're at. And a lot of people will jump agencies. They always say that like agency life is a revolving door. And the easiest way to get promoted is to grow through getting another offer from another agency. If you are doing it internally, it's just really important to make sure that you set goals that are measurable at the beginning of each year. That way, when it comes to your annual review or the end of the year review, you can prove with measurements how you met your goals or exceeded your goals. And then once you have that paper trail, it gives you leverage to be able to negotiate
Kind of
a little bit.
hitting those
gotta,
bullet points, you would say. Yeah.
Yeah. But you got to fight for it. I mean, if you're doing it internally,
Yeah.
they're not offering, you've got to fight for it and you've got to be your own advocate.
I think a lot of places are like that. You're not just, it's like the old saying, a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, that's spot on.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot like the tech industry, where like if you just stick with one company, you're probably going to end up getting underpaid. You jump to another company, it's $50,000 raise, and you're doing the same job.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
The salary bump is definitely nice too. I feel like usually between the positions, there's a good like 15-20% jump. But yeah, it's weird because I never thought. Or I guess when I was younger, I always thought that, okay, I would join a company and I would work there for at least like 20 years, and it would, but that's just not the way that the world works these days. And I was surprised because I thought that when I left an agency, usually, when you leave a job, it's like, oh, you don't go back. And the amount of leaving and coming back that happens in the advertising world is kind of unique, to be honest with you.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Again, I think it's down to promotions. It's hard to get promoted internally.
Yeah.
And so usually when you're losing talent, it has to do with someone offering a better package. And I feel like if you have good connections, they reach back out to you because people want to work with.
Kind of reminds me of what's been going on in the tech industry. Some of these companies, OpenAI, I think even Elon Musk, or Zuckerberg, Facebook, Meta, they're throwing, $100 million packages for these AI guys and girls. And what do you think about that type of, almost showboating, giving people way more than they really deserve?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know how I feel about AI yet. It's definitely changing the way that we work from a creative perspective. And it's not a bad thing per se. It's definitely cutting out jobs though. I will say that if you're going to use AI, at least from my perspective, I try to use it more as like a second brain versus trying to get it to complete tasks. So for example, like, oh, hey, show me the patterns of this document, and then it could highlight patterns. And then I'll go through and analyze myself and try to come up with my own conclusion versus it doing the legwork. But yeah, we have to embrace it because there's nothing we can do to change it. I was talking to someone and you look at how people like buy technology, for example. You know, when a new phone comes out, there's those people who have to have the phone before it even
Yeah.
hits shelf. And then you've got people who don't buy it until it's been out for 2 years. If you wait too long to embrace AI, you're going to turn into Blockbuster and you're going to go
Yeah.
extinct. You've got to adapt. You got to evolve. But yeah, it's also weird too. I feel like all these data centers are like using so much water.
Yeah. You know, that's a really.
I wonder how that's going to affect
I
us longer
know.
term.
So
Yeah,
you
me
kind
and
of.
Kev have we've talked about that before. You know, these data centers, they're using all this energy, and people are always saying, "Oh, save the planet," emissions this, emissions that. But then look at all these data centers that are popping up, to
Right?
to I guess facilitate the AI or be able to generate the AI. It's pretty wild.
They're huge. I think it's Amazon is building a facility by where my parents live. And so every time I go back and visit, I drive past it and I mean, I don't think I've seen buildings that stretch, that long with no windows. There's no windows, which is
Oh
also
wow.
wild to me.
Yes, this is really
Um,
interesting, and I know like some agencies they're using AI to actually create the video, which I mean, it's kind of creepy. Like you see these humans, but they don't exist anywhere. So like, what are people really connecting with? I think that's something that we need to really think about.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of the creative professionals too, at least from what I'm experiencing, we're not using AI to have a final product. It's more to like concept or to help get an idea across before you move into production.
Kind of like an
Um,
assistant.
yeah. Well, before AI, everyone used to
Right.
Photoshop your
Right.
boards. And then before Photoshop, people used to draw them out by hand. And so we're just continuing to evolve, but it's true. Like as AI becomes more prevalent, I feel like there's just less people working at
Absolutely.
jobs.
Yes, it's like a interesting back and forth to see like upper management they want more use of AI and use that to kind of push out the human talent because they can pay the AI nothing essentially versus the actual creatives. It seems like okay they want to use it as a tool, but they're not going to allow it to do the work for them because at that point they'll be replaced.
Yep, absolutely. And I don't think I've seen a ton of that yet, but I mean, I see it moving in that direction. I think that it's 100% going to get there. I think that you see that kind of thinking more with lower budget commercials, or lower budget ads or just creative in general. But reality is, right, is it's like if you wanted to be a painter, you had to learn how to
Right.
paint. If you wanted to be a graphic designer, you had to learn how to be a graphic designer. Like, yeah, you have to learn how to use Chat GPT, but it's not
Right.
that hard, you know? So we're empowering a lot more people, which means that I feel like the craft of creative is gonna not de-escalate. It's gonna go downward as
Yeah, I
well.
mean, the way I look at it is a lot of companies are seeing it as okay, this junior talent, this entry level talent, we could have Claude or we could have Chat GPT go ahead and take care of all these tasks. So why am I, paying John or Bill? John and Bill are
Yeah.
are long gone because Claude can do their job. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely seeing that, and on LinkedIn, I'm seeing a lot of people now out of work because of situations like that.
I mean, yeah, my earlier gig or gigs, I used to do research, and like all that stuff is now easily attainable. It took me a week and a half, 2 weeks to put a competitor review together. And like you said, now it can just be done with AI, and they don't need a double AE or an account executive to do all that dirty
Yeah, they
work for
just
them.
don't flat out. They don't need it. So they're not
Yeah.
using these people, and I've talked with Kevin about this before. It's like, okay, what we're going to start seeing is these companies have this really good senior talent, really good, people who can really go through the AI stuff and code and figure out, okay, let's use, A through X, just throw out Z. Like, the senior will determine or decide that. But the thing is, where do you get the seniors? The seniors were once juniors. So if you're not hiring the juniors, how do people become seniors as people start to retire? That's my
Yeah.
question.
And I don't think anyone has the answer, because I think you're right. They're spot on. It's like, how do you get the experience if there's no opportunities to get
Correct.
the experience? It just doesn't make sense. And I don't know if it's just that, yeah, maybe the market will just shrink and maybe the pool will just become less competitive. I think the market is extremely competitive too right now, with everyone downsizing. Everyone's looking for work, and it's just like, when I got my gig, my most recent one, I mean, I got it in under a week.
Oh, wow.
So these opportunities are moving
Yeah.
fast. Yeah.
And that's typical.
Yeah, just
That's typical
wild.
in the ad industry. Stuff to move, deals to move really fast. People to get hired
No,
really
I mean,
fast.
usually it takes a while to get some sort of like salary approval before you can extend an
Okay.
offer. But I just think it's becoming more common because we're forced to move
Yeah.
fast, you know?
It's like the
Yeah.
AI race. Like, the US is rushing, okay, open AI. We have to get, the best AI chatbot. China's doing the same thing. I don't know how it's all going to boil over, but it should be interesting to watch all of this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you guys can relate to this too, I'm sure. Just over the course of my lifetime, I feel like I've experienced more history than I've ever learned in school. And so just to like take a step back and to watch, 5 years ago, we couldn't do half the stuff that we can do today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just the rate of evolution is wild.
I mean, you can tell one of these chatbots, okay, go read, Of Mice and Men and give me a book report on it. And, within, I don't know, seconds or within minutes, it'll give you a full book report that is like legit.
Yeah.
That to me, that blows my mind.
Crazy. And to think that, all those pop quizzes that I failed back in the day could have been avoided.
Correct. Yeah.
But apparently a lot of students are using it more too now. I was reading an article, and I can't remember who published it, but talking about high school students, that the solution to almost all their problems is ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But yeah, you mentioned like this incredibly difficult job market to close things out. Like, what should people be doing to stay relevant and competitive in such a tough market?
Yeah. So make sure that, you have a story that makes sense and that your story is connected. Again, embrace AI. I always ran my resume through AI to make sure that there are no grammar mistakes or typos, any formatting suggestions. But also, it's kind of weird because you have all of these companies using AI filters to scan through resumes. And so it almost only makes sense to run your resume or to run cover letters through AI, because you have computers talking to computers now. It's like, and you have to make sure that things are worded correctly, because the ASI scanners or whatever, the companies are using to run resumes through, they're picking up certain keywords and phrases. And you got to make sure it matches. Otherwise you won't get a read. If you don't do that, the only other way I feel like is to, like I said, know someone,
Yeah, have a
or
friend,
to,
right.
Get the hookup from someone that you've worked with in the past.
I mean, I see a lot of that. People will just like fall into a job because they know Ted. It's like that simple.
Yeah, and it's important. Like if you're in the industry, it's important to keep up with people and to make sure that you're not only going to people when you need them.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, man, we're at the top of the hour. Before we get out of here, do you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts, and where can our audience find you at?
Yeah. So my LinkedIn, Kristofer Kaizer. Also, I've got my gram, the Insta, KB Kaizer. Always more than welcome to hit me up there. But yeah, I think that over the pandemic and over the job market, it's really important to make sure that you don't get lost in the climb for success, and that you're truly happy and that you're doing what you love. So I would just encourage everyone to maybe take a step back for a month or so and to invest in themselves, because you don't know what's going to come out of it.
Absolutely, man. No, we definitely appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
No, I appreciate it, man. It's been fun, and yeah, it went by really fast. I can't believe it's already been an
man,
hour.
we'd love to have you back on sometime in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.